Listen closely. Right now, at this exact moment, your mind is being hijacked. Not by some external force, but by something far more insidious, the architecture of modern distraction. You think you're in control, scrolling, choosing, deciding. But watch someone's eyes as they stare at their screen, empty, glazed, flickering from one stimulus to the next like a moth trapped in a room full of candles. This isn't weakness. This is warfare. And you're losing. 500 years ago, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli understood something that most people still don't grasp today. Power doesn't come from muscles, money, or charisma. It comes from one thing: the ability to think while everyone else reacts. He watched princes rise and fall, kingdoms crumble, empires built on the sharpness of a single mind. And he documented the secret. The dangerous mind isn't the loudest, it's the clearest. It doesn't compete in the chaos, it operates above it. While others drown in information, the dangerous mind extracts exactly what it needs and discards the rest, like a surgeon removing a tumor. Precision, silence, lethality. You're about to learn what Machiavelli discovered in the blood-soaked courts of Renaissance Italy, translated into the psychological battleground of the 21st century. By the end of this video, you won't just think differently, you'll think dangerously. You'll see patterns invisible to others. You'll predict outcomes before they unfold. You'll move through conversations, negotiations, conflicts, like a chess master who's already seen the endgame. But first, you need to understand why your mind isn't dangerous right now. It's not because you lack intelligence. It's because your intelligence is being drained, siphoned away by 1,000 invisible cuts every single day. Your attention is currency, and you've been spending it like a fool. Drop this in the comments right now. My mind is my weapon. The modern world has perfected the art of mental castration. Every app, every notification, every algorithmic feed is designed with one purpose: to keep you engaged, reactive, and predictable. You think you're consuming content, but content is consuming you. Your ability to think deeply, to concentrate for more than 5 minutes, to hold a complex idea without reaching for distraction, that's vanishing. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, but very few can feel. Translation: most people operate on surface-level perception. They see the obvious and miss the structure beneath. The dangerous mind sees both. It reads the room, the subtext, the hidden motivations that people don't even recognize in themselves. Right now, your mind is being trained to be harmless, to scroll, to react, to feel momentary outrage or amusement and then move on, remembering nothing, learning nothing, becoming nothing. That's not an accident. A distracted population is a controllable population. A mind that can't focus is a mind that can't resist. But here's the twist. The same mechanisms that weaken most people can be reverse engineered to make you dangerously effective. You just need to understand the game. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize how your attention is being manipulated, you become immune. And immunity is power. Machiavelli understood that the greatest threat to a ruler wasn't external enemies. It was internal chaos. The same applies to your mind. Your greatest enemy isn't your competition, your circumstances, or your limitations. It's the noise inside your own head, the scattered thoughts, the emotional reactions, the inability to sit in silence without reaching for stimulation. The dangerous mind is built on one principle: control. Not control over others, that comes later. Control over yourself, over your impulses, over your attention, over the way you process information and make decisions. When you master internal control, external influence becomes automatic. People feel it. They don't know why, but they sense something different about you, something sharper, something they can't quite manipulate. This video will give you 7 weapons, 7 mental frameworks that Machiavelli would have recognized instantly, even though he lived centuries before smartphones, social media, or modern psychology. These aren't tips, they're not hacks, they're transformations. Each one will rewire how you think, and once you integrate them, you'll never see the world the same way again. But I need you to commit right now. Not to me, to yourself. This isn't entertainment. This is reconstruction. If you're ready to make your mind dangerous, stay until the end. Like this video so the algorithm shows it to others who are ready to evolve. And when I ask you to drop affirmations in the comments, do it. Not because I'm asking, but because repetition rewires neural pathways. Every time you type those words, you're programming yourself. Let's begin. The first weapon is something Machiavelli called virtù. It's often mistranslated as virtue, but that's not what he meant. Virtù is the quality of effectiveness, the ability to act decisively when others freeze, to adapt when circumstances shift, to remain clear-headed when chaos erupts. It's mental agility combined with unshakable composure. Most people mistake being busy for being effective. They fill their days with motion, meetings, tasks, distractions, and convince themselves they're productive. But Machiavelli would have seen through that immediately. He wrote that it is better to be impetuous than cautious, because fortune is a woman and it is necessary to hold her down and beat her. Controversial? Absolutely. But strip away the Renaissance metaphor and you find the principle. Decisiveness defeats hesitation. The dangerous mind doesn't deliberate endlessly. It gathers the minimum viable information, makes a calculated decision, and moves. While others are still planning, you're already 3 steps ahead. While they're seeking permission, you're creating results. This doesn't mean recklessness. It means understanding that perfect information never arrives. The window of opportunity closes while cowards are still researching. Think about the last time you hesitated on something important, a conversation you avoided, a decision you postponed, a risk you didn't take. That hesitation wasn't wisdom. It was fear disguised as prudence. And every moment of hesitation trains your brain to hesitate more. You're programming yourself for paralysis. The dangerous mind trains the opposite reflex. When uncertainty appears, it doesn't retreat. It advances, not blindly, but boldly. It asks, what's the worst outcome? Can I survive it? Can I learn from it? If yes, then the decision is already made. Hesitation dies. Action lives. Machiavelli observed that princes who rely too heavily on advisors become weak. They outsource their thinking and lose the ability to trust their own judgment. The modern equivalent. People who can't make a decision without polling friends, checking reviews, scrolling forums, seeking validation from strangers. They've abdicated mental sovereignty. The dangerous mind trusts itself, not arrogantly, but fundamentally. It knows that even a wrong decision made with conviction teaches more than perfect inaction. It understands that confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's the willingness to move despite doubt. That willingness, repeated over time, becomes instinct. And instinct is faster than thought. Here's your assignment. Think of one decision you've been avoiding, something you know you need to do but keep postponing. Maybe it's a difficult conversation. Maybe it's leaving a situation that's draining you. Maybe it's starting something you're afraid to fail at. Whatever it is, I want you to make that decision within 24 hours of finishing this video. Not plan it, not think about it more. Execute it, because every act of decisiveness strengthens the neural pathway of courage. Every avoided decision strengthens the pathway of fear. You're either training yourself to be dangerous or training yourself to be harmless. There's no neutral position. Drop this in the comments. I trust my decisions. The second weapon is strategic silence. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the power of concealment. He advised princes to appear one way while operating another, to seem merciful while being ruthless, to project certainty while calculating probabilities. The dangerous mind understands that information is leverage, and every time you speak unnecessarily, you surrender leverage. Watch how most people communicate. They overshare. They explain, they justify. They seek approval through verbal diarrhea, revealing their insecurities, their strategies, their vulnerabilities, and in doing so, they make themselves predictable. Predictability is weakness. The dangerous mind speaks less, but says more. Every word is measured. Every silence is intentional. When others are frantically filling conversational space with noise, you're observing. You're reading micro-expressions. You're noticing what's not being said. You're collecting data while they're hemorrhaging it. Silence creates psychological pressure. Most people are terrified of it. They'll rush to fill the void, often revealing more than they intended. In negotiations, the person who speaks first after a proposal usually loses. In conflicts, the person who remains calm while others rage gains immediate authority. In relationships, the person who doesn't need constant validation controls the dynamic. This isn't about being cold or manipulative. It's about understanding that your thoughts are your most valuable asset. Once spoken, they become public property. They can be twisted, used against you, or simply diluted by misunderstanding. The dangerous mind protects its strategic thinking like a fortress guards its gold. Machiavelli himself was a master of this. His letters reveal a man who carefully calibrated what he revealed to different audiences. He knew that total honesty is a luxury only the powerless can afford. The powerful must manage perception, not just reality. Here's the practice. For the next 7 days, cut your speaking by half. In meetings, say half as much as you normally would. In social situations, listen twice as long as you talk. In text conversations, reduce your message length by 50%. You'll discover something remarkable. People start leaning in. They become more curious. Your words carry more weight because they're scarce. Scarcity creates value. This applies to gold, attention, and speech. When you talk constantly, your words become cheap. When you speak selectively, every sentence becomes an event. People start quoting you. They start wondering what you're thinking. Mystery generates influence. But here's the deeper level. Strategic silence isn't just external. It's internal. The dangerous mind doesn't narrate its own experience constantly. It doesn't need to process every thought through internal dialogue. It can simply observe without commentary. This creates space, and in that space, insight emerges. Most people's minds are like radios stuck between stations. Constant static, constant chatter. Thoughts about thoughts about thoughts. The dangerous mind has an off switch. It can enter states of complete mental stillness, where perception becomes sharp, decisions become obvious, and clarity replaces confusion. This is the silence Machiavelli practiced while writing in exile. Stripped of power, banished from Florence, he cultivated internal stillness that produced The Prince, a text that has influenced leaders for 5 centuries. His external silence forced internal depth. Your voluntary silence will do the same. Drop this in the comments. My silence is my strength. The third weapon is what I call predatory observation. Machiavelli spent years studying power dynamics, watching how people rose and fell, analyzing patterns that most couldn't see. He wrote that anyone who deceives will always find someone who will allow themselves to be deceived. The dangerous mind understands this principle intimately. It watches how people deceive themselves. Most observation is passive. People see but don't analyze. They watch but don't decode. They notice surface behavior without understanding the machinery beneath. The dangerous mind observes like a hunter. Every interaction is data. Every conversation reveals psychological architecture. Every person is a case study. Here's what you need to watch for. First, watch where people's attention goes naturally, not where they say it goes, but where it actually moves. This reveals their values. Someone who constantly checks how others perceive them is insecure. Someone who immediately deflects compliments has self-worth issues. Someone who name drops is compensating for irrelevance. Second, watch the gap between what people say and what they do. This gap is where truth lives. Someone who talks constantly about loyalty but abandons people when convenient. That's your data. Someone who preaches authenticity but carefully curates every public moment. That's your map. The dangerous mind doesn't judge these contradictions. It simply files them away for future reference. Third, watch how people respond to pressure. Machiavelli wrote that you can know the character of a prince by the enemies he keeps. The modern translation, you can know someone's character by how they behave when stressed, rejected, or challenged. Do they blame others? Do they collapse? Do they adapt? This tells you everything. The dangerous mind is always collecting this information, not for manipulation, but for navigation. When you understand people's patterns, you stop being surprised, you stop being disappointed, you stop wasting energy on relationships that were always going to fail. You allocate your trust, time, and energy with precision. But here's where it gets deeper. The most important observation is self-observation. Machiavelli's genius wasn't just understanding others, it was brutal self-assessment. He knew his own weaknesses, biases, and blind spots. The dangerous mind turns the same analytical lens inward. Watch your own patterns. When do you become defensive? What triggers emotional reactions? Where do you consistently make the same mistakes? Most people avoid this self-examination because it's uncomfortable. The dangerous mind embraces it because discomfort is the price of evolution. Start an observation journal, not a diary about feelings, a cold analysis of behavior.
Your behavior and others. 3 entries per day. 1 observation about someone else. 1 observation about yourself. 1 pattern you noticed. Do this for 30 days, and you'll develop a perceptual skill that most people never acquire. You'll start reading rooms instantly, predicting outcomes automatically, seeing through performances effortlessly. The dangerous mind doesn't need to be told what's happening. It sees. And once you see clearly, you can't be lied to, manipulated, or blindsided. You become dangerous because you're operating with information others don't have access to, information hiding in plain sight. Drop this in the comments. I see what others miss. The 4th weapon is calculated adaptation. Machiavelli wrote that the one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not. The dangerous mind isn't rigid, it's fluid. But this fluidity isn't weakness. It's strategic flexibility built on unchanging principles. Most people confuse consistency with inflexibility. They take a position and defend it regardless of new information. They commit to strategies that stopped working years ago. They cling to beliefs because admitting change feels like admitting defeat. This is ego protecting itself at the expense of effectiveness. The dangerous mind has no such attachment. It evaluates everything by 1 metric. Does this work? Not does this feel right? Not does this align with my identity? Not does this match what I said before? Simply, does this produce the outcome I want? If yes, continue. If no, change immediately. Machiavelli watched countless rulers fall because they couldn't adapt. They applied yesterday's solutions to today's problems. They fought the last war while the current one unfolded around them. The dangerous mind studies this mistake and refuses to repeat it. Here's the framework. Separate your principles from your tactics. Principles are unchanging. Integrity, competence, purpose, these remain constant. But tactics are disposable. The method you used last year might be obsolete today. The approach that worked in one context might fail in another. The dangerous mind knows the difference. This requires killing ego. Ego says I must be consistent. Intelligence says I must be effective. Ego says changing my mind makes me look weak. Intelligence says changing my mind based on new data makes me anti-fragile. Ego says I need to defend my position. Intelligence says I need to achieve my objective, and position is irrelevant. Watch how nature operates. Trees don't refuse to shed leaves because they identified as evergreen. Water doesn't refuse to flow around obstacles because it committed to a straight path. Adaptation is the fundamental law of survival. The dangerous mind applies this law consciously. But here's the sophistication. True adaptation isn't random. It's strategic. You're not changing because you're confused. You're changing because you're learning. There's a massive difference. Confused change is reactive. Strategic adaptation is proactive. Machiavelli adapted constantly. When Florence fell, he didn't cling to his position. He withdrew, studied, wrote, and eventually influenced more leaders through his books than he ever did through his office. That's dangerous adaptation, turning apparent defeat into long-term victory. The practice is this.
Identify one belief or strategy you've been defending out of habit, not effectiveness. Maybe it's how you work. Maybe it's how you communicate. Maybe it's how you spend your time. Challenge it. What if the opposite were true? What if there's a completely different approach? The dangerous mind isn't afraid to experiment because it knows that learning from failed experiments still moves you forward. Drop this in the comments. I adapt. I overcome. The fifth weapon is emotional opacity. Machiavelli advised that a prince must be a great pretender and dissembler. In modern terms, your emotional state should be unreadable unless you choose to reveal it. The dangerous mind controls its emotional display with surgical precision. Watch people in everyday situations. Their emotions are billboards. You can see anger, frustration, excitement, insecurity, all broadcasting in real time. Every emotional display is information given freely to anyone watching, and that information becomes a handle for manipulation. Someone who shows anger can be provoked. Someone who shows fear can be intimidated. Someone who shows desperate enthusiasm can be exploited. The dangerous mind shows nothing unless there's strategic value in the display. This isn't about suppressing emotion. Suppression creates internal pressure that eventually explodes. This is about separation. You feel the emotion fully. You process it internally, but you choose whether to express it. That choice is power. Machiavelli understood that emotional control is force multiplication. A leader who panics spreads panic. A leader who remains calm under catastrophic pressure stabilizes everyone around them. That calmness isn't natural, it's trained. The dangerous mind trains this deliberately. Here's the mechanism. Emotions are data. Anger tells you a boundary was violated. Fear tells you uncertainty is present. Sadness tells you something valued was lost. These are useful signals. The dangerous mind receives the signal, analyzes the information, and then chooses the response. There's a gap between stimulus and reaction. That gap is where power lives. Most people have no gap. Stimulus produces immediate reaction. Someone insults them, they react. Someone threatens them, they panic. Someone flatters them, they trust. This makes them puppets. The dangerous mind creates a gap, sometimes seconds, sometimes hours, sometimes days. But there's always space between what happens and how they respond. The training is simple, but brutal. When strong emotion arises, pause. Count to 10 before speaking. Take 3 deep breaths before acting. Walk away from the situation if possible and return later. Every time you insert this pause, you strengthen the neural pathway of control. Every time you react immediately, you strengthen the pathway of impulsivity. Over time, this creates what looks like supernatural composure. People will wonder why you never seem rattled. They'll assume you don't feel emotions, but you feel everything. You've just developed the discipline to choose your response rather than surrendering to automatic reaction. Machiavelli also warned about showing too much positive emotion. Excessive enthusiasm makes you appear naive. Constant optimism makes you seem disconnected from reality. The dangerous mind maintains emotional equilibrium, neither too high nor too low, always centered, always calculating. There's one more layer. Emotional opacity doesn't mean never showing emotion. Sometimes displaying emotion is the most strategic move. Calculated anger can establish boundaries. Strategic vulnerability can build connection. Intentional enthusiasm can inspire teams. The key word is intentional. You're choosing the display based on outcome, not surrendering to the feeling. Practice this in low-stakes situations first. The next time someone tries to provoke you, notice the anger, feel it fully, and then respond with calm curiosity instead of defensiveness. The next time you're excited about something, notice the excitement, feel it fully, and then communicate it with measured enthusiasm rather than desperate energy. You're training control. The dangerous mind is a poker face backed by full emotional awareness. Others can't read you, but you read yourself perfectly. That asymmetry is devastating in negotiation, conflict, and strategy. Drop this in the comments. My emotions serve me, not control me. The sixth weapon is strategic isolation. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should avoid being despised and hated. But he also understood that excessive familiarity breeds contempt. The dangerous mind maintains careful distance, not from coldness, but from strategic necessity. Most people are desperate for connection. They seek constant validation, approval, belonging. This desperation makes them agreeable, compromising, and ultimately weak. They'll betray their own interests to maintain relationships. They'll tolerate disrespect to avoid loneliness. They'll sacrifice authentic self-expression to fit in. The dangerous mind has a different relationship with solitude. It doesn't fear it, it weaponizes it. Alone, without the noise of other people's opinions, expectations, and energy, the mind sharpens, patterns become visible, strategies crystallize, clarity emerges. Machiavelli did his best work in isolation. Exiled from Florence, stripped of position and influence, he spent his days reading ancient texts and his nights writing by candlelight. That isolation produced insights that court life never could. Without the constant performance required by social interaction, his mind could focus on pure strategy. The modern world makes isolation almost impossible. You're always reachable, always expected to respond, always plugged into the collective consciousness of social media. And this constant connection is making you dull. Your thoughts are contaminated by everyone else's thoughts. Your opinions are just averages of what you've consumed. Your identity is a composite of others' expectations. The dangerous mind breaks this connection regularly. It builds walls, not permanently, but periodically. Hours of complete disconnection, days of minimal interaction, weeks where social obligation is minimized and internal work is maximized. This isn't antisocial. It's strategically antisocial. Here's what happens in true isolation. First, you're bored. Your brain, addicted to stimulation, screams for input. This is withdrawal. Push through it. Second, you're uncomfortable. Without external validation, insecurities surface. This is necessary. Face them. Third, something shifts. The mental chatter quiets. Thoughts deepen. Insights arrive. This is the reward. The dangerous mind also understands selective association. Machiavelli advised that a prince should choose wise counselors and give them freedom to speak truth. But he should choose few. Quality over quantity. The same applies to your relationships. Most connections drain more than they give. They demand emotional labor, time, energy, without providing equivalent value. Be ruthless about your inner circle. Not cruel, but selective. Who makes you sharper? Who challenges your thinking? Who respects your boundaries? Who operates at the level you're moving toward? Keep those people close. Everyone else? Cordial distance. This will be uncomfortable. People will accuse you of changing, becoming distant, thinking you're too good for them. Let them. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Your development is. The dangerous mind prioritizes growth over likability, effectiveness over popularity, purpose over belonging. Strategic isolation also means information control. Stop telling everyone your plans. Stop seeking approval for your decisions. Stop broadcasting your life for validation. The dangerous mind operates in partial darkness, not secrecy for its own sake, but because premature exposure of plans invites interference, doubt, and sabotage, often unintentional. Build a practice of solitude. 1 hour daily of complete disconnection. No phone, no people, no input. Just you and your thoughts. Once weekly, take a full day of minimal interaction. Once quarterly, take 3 to 5 days of deep isolation. Use this time to think, plan, and recalibrate. You'll return sharper than you left. The dangerous mind knows that the crowd makes you common. Isolation makes you exceptional. Not permanent hermitage, but strategic withdrawal that allows depth impossible in constant connection. Drop this in the comments. Solitude is my sharpening stone. The seventh and final weapon is what Machiavelli called necessita, the willingness to do what is necessary rather than what is comfortable. The dangerous mind doesn't avoid difficulty. It runs toward it because difficulty is the forge that creates unbreakable strength. Most people organize their entire lives around comfort. They avoid hard conversations. They postpone difficult decisions. They take the path of least resistance at every fork. And year by year, they become softer, weaker, less capable. Comfort is corrosive. Machiavelli observed that mercenaries fight weakly because they have nothing at stake. They're comfortable. But citizens defending their homeland fight with ferocity because necessity drives them. The dangerous mind applies this principle internally. It creates necessity. It removes escape routes. It puts itself in positions where only excellence survives. This is counterintuitive. Modern culture preaches balance, self-care, avoiding burnout, and there's wisdom in sustainability. But there's also danger in using self-care as an excuse for mediocrity. The dangerous mind knows the difference between strategic recovery and comfortable stagnation. Here's the framework. Necessity creates focus. When options are limited, decision-making becomes clear. When resources are scarce, efficiency becomes mandatory. When failure has real consequences, performance sharpens. The dangerous mind engineers these conditions deliberately. Burn boats. Cortés understood this when conquering Mexico. He burned his ships, so retreat was impossible. His soldiers had one option: win. That's necessity. You don't need to be that dramatic, but the principle applies. Make commitments you can't casually abandon. Announce goals publicly. Invest resources you can't easily recover. Create conditions where backing out is more painful than pushing through. Most people keep escape hatches open everywhere. Relationships they're not fully committed to. Jobs they complain about but won't leave. Projects they'll abandon if they get hard. Dreams with built-in excuses. The dangerous mind closes these exits, not recklessly, but deliberately. Because when retreat isn't an option, you discover capabilities you didn't know existed. Machiavelli also understood that necessity reveals character. In comfort, everyone looks noble. Under pressure, true nature emerges. The dangerous mind seeks pressure, not stress for its own sake, but challenge that forces growth. Difficult projects, ambitious goals, situations slightly beyond current capability. This is controlled discomfort. Here's your implementation. Identify your comfort zone. That's everything you can do without significant effort or anxiety. Now identify the adjacent zone. That's what's just beyond current comfort. Challenging, but achievable. The dangerous mind lives in the adjacent zone, always stretching, never settling. Take one thing you've been avoiding because it's difficult. That conversation, that project, that risk. Commit to it within 48 hours. Not when you feel ready, now. Because necessity doesn't wait for readiness. It creates readiness. The dangerous mind also understands that what is necessary often conflicts with what is popular. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Controversial, yes, but the principle underneath, effectiveness sometimes requires unpopularity. The dangerous mind accepts this. It chooses results over approval. This doesn't mean being cruel or unnecessarily harsh. It means being willing to make decisions others won't make, have conversations others avoid, enforce boundaries others ignore. Leadership, whether of others or of self, requires this willingness. Without it, you'll forever be shaped by what others find acceptable rather than what you find necessary. The final layer of necessity is this. The dangerous mind embraces mortality. Machiavelli lived in an era where death was immediate and common. Political execution, disease, warfare. This created urgency. Modern life offers the illusion of unlimited time. The dangerous mind rejects this illusion. You will die. That's not morbid. That's liberation. Every day wasted is gone forever. Every year spent in comfortable mediocrity is a year you'll never reclaim. The dangerous mind feels this urgency, not as anxiety, but as fuel. Time is the only truly scarce resource. Spend it on what matters. Eliminate ruthlessly what doesn't. Drop this in the comments. Necessity makes me unstoppable. Now let's bring this together. You have 7 weapons: decisive action, strategic silence, predatory observation, calculated adaptation, emotional opacity, strategic isolation, embracing necessity. Individually, each one transforms how you operate. Combined, they create something Machiavelli would recognize instantly: a dangerous mind. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. You've spent 30 minutes absorbing this information. The question is, what happens in the next 30 days? Will you treat this like every other motivational video you've watched? Feel inspired for an hour, then return to old patterns? Or will you actually implement? The dangerous mind knows that transformation isn't an event. It's a process. It's daily practice, weekly review, monthly recalibration. It's catching yourself falling into old patterns and consciously choosing new ones. It's uncomfortable, often lonely, and absolutely necessary. Here's your immediate action plan. First, choose one weapon from this video, not all 7. 1. The one that resonated most strongly. Maybe it's the weapon you need most. Maybe it's the one you're already halfway toward mastering. Doesn't matter. Choose one. Second, define one specific behavior you'll implement in the next 24 hours. Not a vague intention, a concrete action. If you chose decisive action, what's the decision you've been avoiding? If you chose strategic silence, where will you deliberately speak less? If you chose predatory observation, what will you specifically observe? Third, tell someone about this commitment, not for validation, but for accountability. Or better yet, drop it in the comments below. Make it public. Create necessity. Fourth, track it. For 30 days, note every time you practice this new behavior. Note when you succeed. Note when you fail. The dangerous mind studies its own patterns as ruthlessly as it studies others. Fifth, stack habits. Once the first weapon becomes automatic, usually 3 to 4 weeks, add the second, then the third. Within 6 months, you'll have integrated all 7, and you'll be unrecognizable from who you are today. But let me warn you, this transformation has costs. You'll lose friends who were comfortable with the old you. You'll face resistance from people who benefit from your weakness. You'll encounter internal resistance as old identity structures fight to survive. This is expected. The dangerous mind pays the price. Machiavelli was exiled, tortured, and died in relative obscurity. But 500 years later, his ideas still shape how power operates. He chose long-term impact over short-term comfort. The dangerous mind makes the same choice. Not for legacy, but for effectiveness. For the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're operating at a level most people never reach. I want you to understand something clearly. This isn't about dominating others. It's not about manipulation or cruelty. It's about becoming so clear, so focused, so internally aligned that you naturally rise above the chaos that drowns most people. It's about effectiveness, about impact, about living at your actual potential rather than your comfortable minimum. The world doesn't need more people who are smart. Intelligence is common. The world needs people who can think clearly under pressure, act decisively amid uncertainty, adapt rapidly to change, and maintain composure when everything around them is falling apart. That's rare. That's dangerous. You now have the map, the 7 weapons, the framework Machiavelli would have recognized. What you do with this information determines whether you wasted 30 minutes or invested in transformation.
Before you leave, I need 3 things from you. First, like this video. Not for me, but because the algorithm will show it to others who need it. The dangerous mind understands systems and uses them strategically. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications. This isn't just one video. This is a complete reconstruction of how you think. Future content will build on these foundations. Miss it, and you'll plateau. Third, drop this final affirmation in the comments. My mind is my greatest weapon.
Type it, mean it, live it. 500 years ago, Machiavelli sat in exile and wrote the Handbook of Power. Today, you've just received the modern translation. The principles haven't changed. Human nature hasn't changed. The game is still the same. Only the context is different. The dangerous mind doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It doesn't require external validation. It simply begins, right now, today, this moment. You're either building a dangerous mind or accepting a harmless one. There's no middle ground. Choose. My mind is my greatest weapon.